Hey guys, this is Rep. I think this video is long overdue because there might be some people wanting to get away from Windows and start gaming on Linux, but they have no idea how to do that. So, in efforts to make that a little easier for you to do, I decided to make this video that should help you get up and running. So, I made a checklist here for the Linux gaming setup. In this video, I'm going to be referencing two types of Linux: old Linux and new Linux. Old Linux is going to be the ones like myself who are diehards that don't want to change into, say, a newer version of Linux because it doesn't work well on our computers. Um, because we got old stuff, and our old stuff works fine. But with the new Linux, it doesn't work so fine. And then we have, for the new Linux people, the ones that have the top end hardware and they have the newer Linux operating systems and they have access to the newer softwares, where us on old Linux don't have that access, but we still do now. I'll explain that further into the video. So, us older Linux people can use current softwares via Flatpak. Flatpak is a container system which basically takes components from new Linux and puts it all into its own operating space, like a sandbox. I believe that's how they reference it. So we use that so we can use modern software. Give you a quick example. I go into my Chrome. It's at version 118. I still need to update it. I haven't yet, but this, as of a couple weeks ago, was a current version. Um, since I'm using Ubuntu 18, Linux Mint 19, this should not be possible, but through Flatpak it is. So that's why I use Flatpak, because I'm on old Linux, where a new Linux person would just go into their software repository, put in Chrome, and all of a sudden they have the newest Chrome and it keeps it up to date. But you'll find there are people out there that have something that's working perfectly well for them and they don't want to upgrade because usually upgrading breaks a lot of things. So, in this video, I'll be referencing if you're on old Linux, do this. If you're on new Linux, do this, and so forth. But if you're on new Linux and you're having a problem getting things working, you can still use Flatpak, and it will install the container for you and allow you to easily install Chrome, easily install Lutris, and keep things at current version for you. Now, the good thing about Flatpak is, say you got a working system, and all of a sudden they're pushing on an update for you, and your operating system, your Linux, is coming to its end of life, but you don't want to change it. Flatpak won't end a life on you. It'll keep, everything current in its environment and allow you to keep your current operating system, keep your current Linux, while still having access to the new software that's coming out. So I would say for us gamers on Linux, this is a godsend. So we're going to install that. So how do we install that? So let's go over to Flatpak. Put in Flatpak install. You'll come up with a quick setup. A quick setup. These are all the distribution choices you have. I'm using Mint just because for me, I think the graphic driver install for NVIDIA through Mint is a godsend. To use any other Linux out there can be problematic. Linux Mint simplifies that. So for me, I can choose Ubuntu, Linux Mint, doesn't matter. So let's go with Linux Mint. Flatpak support is built into 18.3. But I can go in here and my version is 1804. Older Ubuntu versions I can do at the repository. So let's take this, copy it, pull up a terminal, paste it, password it, and you'll go through and it'll do all the stuff. Control C to cancel. I already have it in there. There's no need for me to put any more in there. Then you'll do sudo or sudo. It means super user do. So basically, you're doing administrative without having to actually clock into it. So paste that. It'll update the repository settings. And lastly, I'll do sudo apt install flatpak. Run through that, and it'll install flatpak for you. Oh, I should show you what I have in there. So once you have that installed, I'm going to do a flatpak list. And it'll show you everything you have installed through Flatpak. This is its own sandbox container. I have Proton Tricks, Flatseal, Google Chrome, Bottles, Lutris, Blender. If you ever go to Proton Database, you'll see in there where it says free desktop platform. Those are people using Flatpak and Steam to make it run. I don't recommend that because Steam can install on every system directly into your system, and it'll keep it update. Using Flatpak to install Steam, you run into issues. But we also have the Mesa drivers for the Intel graphics. I have Intel graphics in here. I have NVIDIA graphics in here. And an NVIDIA driver 530. I put the Genome desktop environment in there to make things run, and KDE desktop in there, DXVK, Vulkan. I put the wine environment in there, the Gecko, then Mono, which is for wine. So these are its own environment. When you install Lutris, you'll end up getting wine installed in there as well. And this is how we old Linux users use new software. So let's get out of there. If you're on new Linux, then you would probably do a sudo apt install and then whatever program you're after, say Chrome, Lutris, and so on and so forth. And that'll just install it directly into your system versus a Flatpak installing it into the sandbox. Okay? So now we got Flatpak installed, we need to install video drivers. How are you going to play a game without video drivers? Well, you're not going to play it that well. So, first things first, let's take a look at what kind of card you have. If you don't know what kind of card you have in there, or you're questioning what your specs are, or so on, let me paste that in there. You're going to type in LSPCI space -K space line, I don't even remember what they call it, space grep space -EA3 space apostrophe VGA line 3D line display. Once you do that, it'll tell you what kind of video cards you have in there. It says Dell 3rd Gen core processor, that's Intel. The driver is using is i915. Then it shows my NVIDIA, the Quadro M3000M, and the driver is used for that. So now you know what video card you have, you can install a driver. If you have an Intel video card, it's normally installed already for you. You don't have to do anything else. If you have the Arc one, the new Arcs that are coming out, you'll need to go to their website, and they have a whole installation process information in there. If you have an AMD, you'll have it through Mesa. And if you're unsure if it's installed or not, you can do sudo apt-get space install and Mesa utils. Let's do that real quick. You get that in there in your terminal, hit enter, it'll run through the install for you. So, if you have an NVIDIA one, this is where it gets complicated for most Linux gamers, because it's the one that's used quite a bit. You can go to a website, download the installer, run it that way. Or, if you're like me, I use Linux Mint for this reason. NVIDIA drivers have been complicated since day one in Linux, because all these graphics you see on the screen, in order to install an NVIDIA driver, you would have to get rid of your graphics on your screen, which means stopping Xorg, which is the graphic side of your system, and drop into a terminal-like system, and then install your NVIDIA drivers, because you can't use or install the NVIDIA drivers because it's currently running a graphic system, Xorg. It had to build it separately, add it to your kernel without the Xorg being running. Linux Mint has simplified this drastically. What I mean by that is it can install in a graphic environment, and it gives you the resources to do so. So if I go into System, Driver Manager, and do the password, you'll get used to that. You can password everything on here if you want to make system changes. I believe Pop! OS is really good about it too. There's two different graphic environments these days. It's Xorg, which is the one I'm using, and then there's also Wayland, and people are having trouble in Wayland, and Xorg has been well used and established. Okay, so here's my video card. This one right here, the top one, it's the Video Nouveau. That driver is built by Linux people, and it works pretty good in a lot of cases, but in most gaming cases, it's not going to work well for you. Think of it as like a generic display with some gaming potential. Now the rest of these ones are the NVIDIA drivers, actual drivers from NVIDIA. I had the 530 installed. I can come down here, click on that, apply changes. The system, the Linux Mint will do it for me. I restart my computer, it's working. It's working from the get-go. And then you can test it and make sure it works. Otherwise, if you're using, any other Linux out there, there's a chance you don't have it this easy. So you would have to go and get the driver from NVIDIA. Like here, Unix drivers archive, Linux x86 64. You have a 64-bit system. You'd be getting this guy here, the top one, latest production branch version. If you have a 32-bit system, be the x86. The latest version you have is a 390. So you would download these, and I'm not sure if they actually made it so you can do it in a graphic environment, but once you get it downloaded, I go here, on my downloads, it's right there downloaded. We would actually have to run it. So let's go. You right click anywhere in your file manager. This is XFCE. I can right click there, anywhere in open space, open a terminal, and now I'm into downloads. In this folder, and I type ls, there's my video driver right here. Now right now in its current form it's not green, so it's not usable. In order to change that, I do chmod space 777 space n tab, boom, ls. Now it's green and I can run it. But I am not going to run it, but I'll show you how to run it in case you were there. In case you need to. Period, / capital N tab, and this will go through the installation process. You may run into a snag because the graphic environment is active. It may tell you you can't install it unless you're out of the graphic environment, and that's a whole other ball of wax. There are repositories out there if you do look for, like, if I wasn't running Linux Mint and I needed to find an easier way to install it, here's how I'd go about that. We'll say we're running, I don't know what operating, okay, Fedora, NVIDIA driver install. And you'll have something like this that comes up in 2021. And then you'll follow the process, and they'll tell you it'll give you a repository to install. And then it'll tell you how to install it, and then how to check it. So with me, I have it installed. I ended up installing it through the CUDA toolkit because I am a content creator. So when I installed my CUDA drivers so I can make videos and render them faster, it also installed the driver. So, but for simplicity, Linux Mint is the way to go with it. Out there, because you have the driver manager. But let's continue back to the list. So we got our driver installed. Now we need to see if it's actually working. So that's how we're going to accomplish that. Just to show you, I have my driver installed here. After I install the driver, restart my computer, bring it back up. Let's check if it's actually listed. So in Linux Mint, we go to System. I go to System Profiler, Benchmark. But in order to get that, then you go to the Software Manager. And then I think it was Hardware Info. No. Can't remember the name of it. Let's see. Hard info. Okay. Hard info. Alright. So I went into the software manager and installed hard info. And that gave me access to System Profiler and Benchmark. I open that up. And right here in graphics is showing my Quadro M3000M. Once it's showing up here, I know it's installed. Going into the driver manager, you can see it's installed. So now I'm going to test it. Go into your terminal. just to make sure your drivers are working, type in sudo apt install gl mark 2. I already have that installed, so it'll go through its process for you. Install this little nifty tool. And the next thing we want to do is test this. What this is going to do is test your driver and make sure it's working. So we're going to do gl mark space dash b space build colon duration equals 3 colon model equals horse. Hit enter. It'll do a graphic rendering on it, and it's showing in OpenGL that my NVIDIA is working. Quadro is showing the driver is working, and I'm getting 8,176 frames per second for that. So we established the GPU is up and running. After we do that, we need to install Vulkan and DXVK, which is if your computer utilizes DirectX 9 and DirectX 10 and 11. Vulkan usually does it better on Linux. Hell, Vulkan usually does it better on Windows. So, next step is installing that. Alright, so we want to install Vulkan. I'll put these links in the description below so you can see it and reference it if you need to. So Vulkan on Debian Linux. Debian is the core of Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is the core of Linux Mint. So we can do it this way, or Vulkan on Ubuntu. Grab this, put it in the terminal. Sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade, and then I don't know why I didn't do it down here, but I should have. Being installed Vulkan packages. There's also NVIDIA proprietary drivers, and this will allow you to install Vulkan on your NVIDIA drivers on top of it. If you don't have NVIDIA drivers for AMD, all you gotta do is install the Mesa Vulkan, libVulkan, and Vulkan utils. NVIDIA, you're installing NVIDIA graphics driver. Now this one, if you already installed the driver, you're not going to have to worry about that. NVIDIA settings is what you need, Vulkan and Vulkan utils. So you can get rid of this NVIDIA graphic driver. So we copy this puppy over. Paste it in there. Let's go back. Wipe the driver part of it out. And that is what you're using. NVIDIA settings, Vulkan utils. Do that, and we'll update the Vulkan, and you should have access to it. If you're on like other operating systems too, like it has Fedora listed here, how to install it on Fedora for AMD and NVIDIA. When it says AMD, if you're using an Intel, use the same thing as an AMD. You have it here for OpenSUSE, AMD, NVIDIA. Now we're going to check and see if our Vulkan is working. So we'll take this Vulkan less, my Vulkan info less, pop that puppy in there, hit enter, and showing Vulkan is in there and working. Vulkan instance, shows it on my my video card, and it shows it for the Steam and Valve. And so with this, oh, it's also showing the Quadro that I have in there. With this information, you can pretty much verify it that you're installed and you're ready to move on to the next steps. To get out of this particular screen, hit Q, and it exits out of there. Alright, so Vulkan is installed. Next, we are moving on to the Wine. Wine is the core components for making Windows games work on Linux. Lutris is built on it. Steam is built on it. But I think Steam is more compartmentalized where Lutris still has dependencies on it. Don't quote me on that. Steam may still have some requirements from Wine, so it's a good idea to use it, install it as a base until we know otherwise. So how do we install Wine? All Linux users, if you're like me running the 18 Ubuntu, I got the website here. I'll tell you how to install Wine 8 on Ubuntu 18 and Linux Mint 19. This also applies to new Linux users. We are all on pretty much on 64-bit systems these days, but Windows games still have reliance on old x86 code, and so do our games here on Linux. So what we need to do is make sure it can support the old x86 systems, non-64-bit systems, because they're gonna do code calls to those old components. How we do that? If you're on Ubuntu, you have this here: sudo dpackage add architecture i386. Throw that in the terminal and throw a password on there. So basically, that means we need the code from the old 32-bit systems. Do sudo apt update, and then we also want to install wget. It's just another way to get software. And if you're like me, oh wait, no, not yet. We do and get the repository key from WineHQ. You throw that puppy in there. Since I'm using Bionic, I get this repository. If you're on new Linux, you can just do sudo apt install Wine, and it should get you the latest version of Wine because you're on the newest system. If you're on an older system, like me, you have to get these repositories, get it added. If you're not using Bionic, you can change right here, Bionic to whatever version you're using of Ubuntu or that sort of thing. And then there's also an SDL2 library repository, and that's just mostly for sound and help you get better sound, because I think SDL, the original, wasn't all that great, it got choppy. So we get these in there. Got the repository, did sudo update so it registers the repository. Then after that, we do sudo apt install. Install recommends WineHQ stable. And then if you do a Wine version check, you can tell that I'm on Wine 801, which if I went through my operating system, I think the latest version of Wine I had was at 4, and it wouldn't upgrade past that. But with the newer Wine, you get more flexibility and more tools to get games running on Linux. So 4 was good. It still has its applications. It still can be used for older games. But if you got like newer Wine, then you have a better chance of making games run, basically. So if I was on new Linux, I'd do sudo apt install Wine. That would get me the latest version. If I'm on older Linux, I'd come to this website, run through this process. It'll get me up to Wine 8. So I go flat pack list. Let's try it again. Okay, Wine. 8.02. So, the latest version, at least, I might be out of date, but that is 8.02. On my system, I have 8.01, which is where I want to be. So we're using pretty close to current version of Wine, which is good. You could put it on here. You'll probably need to put it in Flatpak just so you can run like Lutris in this environment, bottles, and your other programs too. Like you'll see the Mesa drivers already in here for my Intel video card. NVIDIA is in here for my NVIDIA card. DXVK is in here. Wine's in here. Gecko and an installer. So, and the i386 support, which is essentially what we just built onto the system by following installing the Wine system. And then we installed the Vulkan system for that extra sweet what do you call it, non-DirectX rendering. So now moving on, we have installed the current Wine version as close as we can. Next thing we want to do is install Lutris. Now this one gets a little tricky. Well, not really. If you go to Software Manager, if you're on Linux Mint like myself, let's type in Lutris here. May not show my old one. No, it's not showing any at all. I think the most current version I can get out of Lutris, actually I don't think they support Mint at all. They were having issues. But the latest version I got from it was 4. But in this case, we want to go with Lutris through Flatpak because it's more current. You have more accessibility to the tools. Flatpak install FlatHub.net Lutris. There we go. I was saying skipping because I already have it installed. But it would go through the install process for you. It'll also install dependencies like maybe Wine, I think. And then the Gecko installer, then the DXVK, and everything that Lutris needs to run. All in the sandbox, which is why I have all that stuff in there. Then once all that installs, you actually get the program, you can get it running. And there you have it. Champions Online. Got to dip into Steam on that one. This is direct install. That's a direct install. And this is dipping into Steam. That white background is fading it out. So, that's installed and running. Really easy. Now, if you're on a new Linux, that's for old Linux, or if you just want to use Flatpak in general. If I'm on old Linux, I would do sudo apt install Lutris. If that don't work, you can always try apt-get install Lutris. And that'll be on newer operating systems. If that still doesn't work, then you'll want to go to the Lutris website, and it'll give you a way to install repositories. Let's go here. Lutris download. Okay. Tells you how to do it on Pop OS, on Steam OS, on Flatpak. That's the one I just showed you how to do. Let's go to Ubuntu real quick. You go here, you would download Lutris 0514 all Debian. Which is a lie, because it's not all Debian, because it has like the newer stuff. But you want Python 3 GTK libraries, and if you got this installed and then you go to try and use it and it doesn't work, you might be missing some system requirements like dependencies to make it work, which is why if you're installing something like that, it's always good to try your software manager, or like in this case, sudo app installed, and it'll tell you if it's working, or if it's needing extra dependencies. It'll tell you it has the dependencies and it'll install it. If you find that doesn't work in your case, going through this route, Flatpak is usually an easy way to get it done fast. Like on Fedora, you can do sudo dnf install Lutris, OpenSUSE, sudo zipper, and Lutris. They'll tell you many different ways to do it, but if you're having problems with your system accepting it, Flatpak's a fast way to get it done. There are some limitations, like every once in a while, they did like 3-4 months ago, it did an update on me, and then it crashed. It broke me running games on there. And you can try to mask it, make it so it doesn't update, but Lutris is like Apple in that they'll install updates whether you like it or not. So that's just one of those things you gotta fight with. Steam does that too, but Steam has more developers than Lutris, and they don't break stuff as often, or at all, that I've noticed, where Lutris will. So one day things will be working fine on there, another day it won't. It's just one of those headaches you gotta deal with, but it doesn't happen often. So it's still an invaluable tool to install. So I would get that done, and I did it through Flatpak. And let's see. Alright, next one, Steam. You can do it through Flatpak, but I say avoid it. Integration with the hardware is buggy. So what you want to do in this case is just download it directly from Steam. You'll notice we have the little icon, the Steam icon, which is, for us, means Linux. Or it's a little Chromebook. They have it for Chromebook now. Wow. Okay. So we download it. We go to our download, and did I delete it? I did. I don't need this anymore. Like that. Okay. Well, let's go back to it real quick. Boom. No, that's my recorder. Install. I'll download the Steam latest Debian. Steam's usually good about playing along with older systems, like my own here. And go to download files. You double click it. This is going to be in most cases with old and new Linux and across different distributions. Across the top it says all dependencies are satisfied, which means it has all the tools it needs to work. Then you would click install package. And once you do that, you fire it up. It'll go through an update process, and then you will have Steam on your system. And then you just have to log in, find your games, add your games, and then use its environment to work. I already have quite a few of them installed. I haven't installed the rest of my entire library. I just installed the ones I'd play more often. But, yeah. Get out of there. Alright, now that we got Steam installed, we want to install Proton Tricks. On that one, we get full screen on my terminal. Flatpak list. This is the easiest way I found to do it. So, that GitHub, Medo King, Proton Tricks. So we do Flatpak install FlatHub dot GitHub Mado King get dot Mado capitalizes King. Nope. King Proton Tricks. Alright, it's already installed. Reason for is this will give you some tools to help you get Steam games running when they decide they don't want to, which will happen. If you don't run a native game and you have to run it through their Windows Proton, then sometimes you'll run into issues with it. And if you have tricks you can do, it's basically like Tricks, but you can add Windows type components to it to make it run. So, give you an example of how it works. You fire it up. I'll do native. That means it's on my system. Flatpak is the sandbox, but we'll do on my native games. So I have all these games to choose from. Let's say I go to Outer Worlds. When it finally decides to get there. There we are. It'll say select the default Win prefix. Yes, says OK. I need to install Windows components. Click on that. Hit OK. And these are all the Windows components you can install in there to try and make a Windows game work on your system. Most of these are already installed through Proton, like DXVK. Vulkan's already installed. The DirectX 9, 10, and 11 through Proton's already installed, so you don't have to worry about those parts. But say if you use something like Play on Linux, it doesn't have anything pre-installed, so you would actually have to go through, put DirectX 10, 11, DirectX 9, .NET, the XVK, and so on and so forth, in order to try to fulfill what the Windows game is trying to use. If it's not there, you put it there, it should work. So let's cancel out there. So Proton Tricks is a nice little addition to Proton. Okay, so I got Proton Tricks. Now we're going to install Bottles. Bottles is another compatibility tool. The only thing I use this for is Battle.net. It is the easiest way on Linux to get Battle.net going. So you can get your Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo Immortal, and I don't know about Diablo 4 because I haven't bought it. I'm not too happy with what I've been, watching about it. So I don't know. So what we're gonna do is Flatpak that one in. Let's go. Flatpak list. So Bottles is through com.us bottles, or use bottles, not bottles. Flatpak install FlatHub com.use bottles. Bottles. It's already installed, of course, because it's on my list. I'm just showing you so you don't have to go digging through FlatHub to try and find it, which is really not that hard. You go on to FlatHub. I'm gonna use this one. FlatHub. You go on FlatHub, the Linux App Store, look for. What the hell is it called? Yeah, I forgot just now. Oh, Bottles. Bottles shows up right here. Run Windows software. Tell you how to install. Same thing I just typed out. Tells you how to run it. Well, once you install it, it'll add to your list. Then to run it, we go here. There's bottles right there. And you create a new bottle. Call this one BattleNet. Oh. Put it for gaming, create. It's created. Now, get in here, install a program. Blizzard. Click on it, and we'll start installing. Now it shows it as gold, which means it works rather well. Platinum means it works without issues. Gold means it works with some issues, but it's minor enough. Silver means, yeah, it's noticeable glitches. And in here you can get Fruit Loop Studios, EA Launcher, Good Old Games, Origin, PlayStation Plus, Steam. I would not go through here. And it's saying Star Citizen's running at bronze. Bronze is works poorly. Oh, and there's that Epic Game Store in here too. It says it runs at platinum. So if you want these kind of things to run, it's probably the quickest way to do it because it's all pre-configured for you and they maintain it, which means you are prone to breakage, but usually they're pretty quick about fixing things that break that are very popular, which Epic Game Store would be, Blizzard would be, Good Old Games would be. So you go through that, install it. Quickest way to get those game front ends working. I did make a video showing how to get Diablo 3 and BattleNet working on Lutris, but this I find is a quicker, better option. Less work on your part. That's why we included it on this video. Okay. Last thing we want to do is install Play on Linux. So let's get a fresh window. We need sudo apt install Play on Linux. Now I can tell you right now, this is probably the old version. I just can't read where it is, what version it is, so let's go with no on this. That would be how you install it if your computer didn't have a software manager. For me, I do have one. We're going to use that real quick so we can check versioning on it versus the most current. This is going to be your last line of defense. When it doesn't work on anything else, you can go in here and basically test things out and try to get it to work. So 4.2.12. So download from GitHub. Not a software manager. Works better. Only gave it 2 stars though. But anyway, 4.2.12. Let's go check on the website. Boom, boom. Go to downloads. Ubuntu. Alright, latest version. 4.3.4 minus 4.2.1.2. Better to get the latest version. Easiest way to do that, click on that. And close that. Starts downloading. Same thing as before. For me, it's a Debian package, so once that's downloaded, I go to my downloads. It's like I already had it downloaded, so let's delete that. Double click it. Alright, requires 13 packages. So it would install that for you and Play on Linux for you. But I'm not going to do that right now. I don't have a good internet connection at this moment. Let me get rid of this. But you would get that installed and then have another avenue for making Windows games work. Yeah, go to the website installer. So with all those tools right there, you should have ample opportunity to make Linux games work on your system. Steam's probably going to be the easiest to get working, but it's not foolproof. If it says it's working, like say some games run natively on Linux, you'll find those in there. Sometimes they don't. Yeah, it's probably better just to show you. Alright, let's go to the library. Okay, here's a prime example. If I go here, go to store page. Oh, jeez. I thought I got that fixed already. Alright, we come down to the system requirements. It's saying it works on Ubuntu 14 and up.
They're all gonna pay.
Needs the RAM, space, and so on and so forth. Okay. I go to my library, go to that, go to right click it, and then go to properties. Compatibility. It did not work. If you uncheck that, you're using Linux. If you check that, you're using Proton or Windows version. Put it on 706. It said it worked on Linux. It did not. I switch it over to run it on a Windows environment and it worked just fine. That happens. Fallout 4 ended up changing it over to compatibility with 706. 706 for me has worked great. If I try to use 8, it usually crashes my system. 638 is the backup, but 706 usually works better than all of them. This will be probably the quickest way to get a game going. To find out how to make the games work, you go to Proton database on a website and then see what people are saying about the game. Proton DB, we'll do Fallout 4. Game details for Fallout 4. You can do all or put it just on PC. See what kind of system they're using. They're using Proton 803 with Bookworm, Debian, kernel 6, that much RAM, Mesa driver for their AMD, and their Intel Core. Says it works great out of box. I use this script to install mods. And this guy here, 803 KDE Neon, didn't have such a good time. And this one worked flawlessly once you put these things in there for them. So, if you're looking for games to play in Steam, Proton Database will give you an idea of what's working and what's not, and what. Like this one's working in gold, so you'll have to do a little work. Platinum, usually less work. It's a standard in most of the Linux gaming things. And then Lutris is your next option. I use that to dip into, like, if my Steam games aren't working correctly. Where are you at? Like, I don't have it installed at the moment, but Divinity Original Sin 2 won't work in Steam, so I end up using Lutris to dip into the Steam install and make it work. which I'll show in another video later on. But first I gotta get it installed and so on. But these tools benefit each other. This is why I suggested installing these things. Once you get the video driver going, DBK or DXVK going, Vulkan going, wine support going, and then you install Lutris system, Steam system, bottle system, and Play on Linux system, you have the opportunity to make the game you want to play work. There are some things that are limitations, like anti-cheat for online games that make it impossible. So like, say, Mabinogi won't work on Linux. But then again, I mean, I could probably make it work, but it's going to take a lot of effort. But for the majority of the games you would want to play with your system, you know, working in peak performance with the drivers installed and the tools to make the games work, these tools will help you out quite a bit. So, with that being said, there you go. I'll have game video configurations to show you how to make some games work that don't work well in one place, and the easiest way to get them going. But that's it. This has been Rip. Thanks for watching. You guys take care of yourselves.